Thank you for attending. My name is Joe Cilia and I'm the Technical Manager at FIS. FIS represents suppliers and contractors in the finishes and interior sector. We turn buildings into homes or schools or offices. I want to talk to you about an initiative that we developed with members to ensure they had all the evidence they needed in their projects. And we wanted to do this without having to use specialist software platforms. 14th of June 2017 is a date that I won't forget. It was the day that Grenfell Tower caught fire, resulting in 72 deaths and more than 70 people were injured. Dame Judith Hackett was asked to carry out an independent review of the building regulations and fire safety. And she produced an interim report in December of that year, only 6 months after the fire. Amongst other things, it said that there was a lack of evidence of what had been built, and a lack of evidence that what had been built was compliant, and a lack of evidence of competency amongst those who were involved in the project. She also said that there was a widespread culture in relation to building and fire standards of waiting to be told what to do by the regulator, and that a culture change is required, with industry taking greater responsibility for what's built, and this change should start now. We saw this as a clear direction of travel and a call to action, so we formed an industry working group made up of specifiers, suppliers, contractors and compliance officers to address the issue and provide guidance for our members that didn't involve a new software platform. One of the group's first questions was, were other examples that had been built that could be considered as non-compliant or dangerous? We found this. Schools built under the PFI model between 2002 and 2005 included Oxgang School in Edinburgh, where a gable end collapsed in a storm during January 2016. And although tons of masonry fell on the playground, thankfully no one was hurt. A report was published on this in 2017, which amongst other things said that there was a failure to prepare or maintain appropriate as installed records. Part of the reason for the collapse was the incorrect length and installation of the brick ties. The ties were too short because the specification of the steelwork had changed, yet they were installed and hidden from view. Clearly the attitude of the people responsible were wrong, and it was lacking, and their behaviour was below what should have been expected. The inspector reasoned that if a simple thing like a brick tie was wrong, what else could be wrong and hidden from view? And they soon found more. This is an example of a service penetration where no attempt had been made to stop the service. There's a clear correlation here between the two reports. So you can understand why in 2017 we started to work with our members to develop a process that could be readily and easily adopted to ensure that evidence of compliance is asked for and recorded. Remember, of course, this should be done where fire performance is required to meet the requirements of Regulation 38. So let's start with a product, and it could be a simple thing like this, which are the brick ties, or fire doors. The process will be the same. So with process, it's important that recording information is done in a structured way and filed in a way that can be easily obtained. That recording should also include the people who are on site and their level of competency as well. And that's why we call this initiative Product, Process, People, PPP for short. Any of us watching the Grenfell inquiry will no doubt be aware of Richard Millett, the QC, and his deep and detailed questioning about evidence and competency. There is a risk of being asked the question about evidence and not being able to provide it when you're asked for. If you were being asked to provide evidence today, could you provide it? Remember as well your obligations under Regulation 38. So let's start at looking at evidence gathering for the product. Start with the specification provided at tender, record it and filed it. It should give the detail of what you're being asked to provide. Then add evidence of compliance against that. Use test evidence of the products you're installing, but be aware that some company certificates often provide little detail. Ideally, use products with third-party certification because it's done from an independent body and it includes regular retesting and evidence of factory control and process. Include assembly instructions and details of interfaces with other elements of the build. Your process of evidence gathering should include regular site images, especially where products like brick ties will be covered up in the final construction. The images should be date stamped and it should have geo-positioning and might be photographs or digital recording. It should include the progress of the build and not just the finish installation. And you can include step process checklists, such as this that we've produced for dry lining. Keeping a record of people involved in the project is important, as we've seen at the Grenfell inquiry. You could use a RACI model to show the people's responsibilities for each of the projects. So RACI is about who is responsible, who is accountable, who should be consulted, and who needs to be informed. It's a very good way of managing people on projects. You could simply copy the CSCS cards of each worker each day, and it's a good way of recording who's on site. CSCS smart cards contain a chip which stores information on the cardholder's identity, qualifications and training. Site managers can read the information using a smartphone or a tablet, allowing them to instantly record the cardholder's information and be secure in the knowledge that the cardholder is qualified for the job that they're doing on site. There are specialist ways of recording attendance, such as this DonSeed app, which uses GPS facial capture to provide identity at point of sign-in and sign-out to manage attendance by location or by project. It's also recording what people did, such as this recording of fire stopping of service penetrations. Culture change is required. With industry taking greater responsibility for what's built, remember, Dame Judith said this change needs to start now. This slide from Andy Webster sums up culture change and the reason for change. So the question is the risk of doing the same greater than changing now? We could ask these people who've been giving evidence under examination at the Grenfell inquiry if they feel change is required now. Competency has come up a few times here and is one of the key points in Dame Judith's reports, and it's been the subject of 12 working groups over the past 2 years. Each working group has been feeding into a single report covering all aspects of the process and not just operatives, as you can see from the list of the 12 groups, They all agree that competence is made up of 4 attributes: a person's skill, their attitude or their behaviour, their knowledge and experience, and we like to refer to this as competency sake. A new standard of competence for individuals is being drafted, initially using a new fast-track flex process, which will lead to a PAS being published next year. Trade associations will be able to use this to ensure there is a consistent approach to competency going forward. Finally, I wanted to share how industry have collaborated to address the issue of fire stopping of service penetrations. This new free guide was financed and produced in collaboration with the Association of Passive Fire Protection, Building Engineering Services Association, Building Services Research Association, ourselves, FIS, the Gypsum Product Development Association, FSI, Rockwell and Warrington Fire. It provides a process with guidance and 9 golden rules to ensure a compliant design and installation. It's freely available from the trade association websites. And it has a foreword from Dame Judith saying that it's an example of the collaborative working and acceptance of professional responsibility throughout the supply chain that must become a feature of the industry's culture. So product, process, people, PPP, is a process that can be readily and easily adopted to ensure there is clear evidence of what's been installed, that it's compliant, and it's been installed by compliant people. Thank you.